Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 12 of the Big Boys Pod. I'm Trevor here, coming back to you with my co-host, Coach Cole. A chilly
Oh,
December 4th, little Wednesday evening here. I was just
it
telling you
is
before the
chilly.
show, it's like 15 degrees outside here, and the wind is like 40, 50 miles an hour. I like my windows in the other room are like rattling and everything, like a little spooky. But winter's here, man. Football season coming to an end, last week of the regular season, getting into the swing of things basketball wise. So we got a fun show coming ahead for you here. Coach Cole, how have you been this week?
Yeah, man. Lots to talk about. I've been good. It is chilly. I just actually went to Chili's for dinner.
Ooh.
It was okay, per usual. Um, but yeah, man. I mean, we had an awesome rivalry weekend.
Mhm.
We got to see some cool games. Basketball is hot, and we just saw some pretty good play for some teams out of their trips, whether they were like Thanksgiving break trips or whatever those may be, Battle
Mhm.
for Atlantis, things like that. And now we're back into some real Big Ten play, so it's going to be legit. And yeah, we're moving quick one thing into the other. Did kind of want to recap a little bit some of these rivalry games though.
Yeah, fun weekend.
Um, yeah, super fun weekend, and tons of stories there. Um, Actually, one I just want to start with, just because they are the hottest team still in the country, is Oregon.
Mhm.
They beat Washington 49-21. Why I'm bringing it up is because that was their road bump last year, right?
Mhm.
Was a Washington team. So the fact that they were vindicated in that, I think, only helps that locker room feel more and more untouchable. That's really all I have to say in that. I can't wait to talk about their matchup against Penn State, but that will be for
Mhm.
later.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, really good to complete that 12-0 regular season. I mean, they already knew they were
Mhm.
heading to Indianapolis. So you could say it's kind of like, hey, we could phone it in and take the week off and rest or something like that. But they came out ready to play. I mean, 49-21 final score, just rolling once again. Carry that momentum with you to Indy. Like you said, we'll talk about that one. But 12-0, man. I think they're the only team 12-0 now. Only undefeated team
Um,
this year.
yeah, as of now, I think so.
Yeah,
We can look at that again later for verification, but I'm 90% sure that is the
yeah.
case.
Last
Yeah,
man standing. So good for
yeah,
them.
yeah, for real. So, and before that, that was just a Saturday game. That was like the last game actually of the
Hmm.
day on Saturday. So it was kind of fun to sit around and watch that one. Um, Friday was a bigger game, I think, than uh, I personally thought. I know you were more excited for it. That Minnesota Wisconsin matchup.
Yeah, man.
Final score: Minnesota 24, Wisconsin 7. Um, Minnesota doing the deed and kind of keeping them out of bowl eligibility and having a 5-7 season. Man, Brosmer all season long had their number, right? And they took the axe. And if you see the guys with the axe after the game, they're so jacked.
Yeah,
So I mean, if you want to talk about this one, it was kind of all go for ball from start to finish. But
yeah, man. I want to pull up the recent results in this one. Actually, that's what I'm getting right now. Just because, dude, for such a long time, and I think we talked about this a little bit last week, or maybe the week before, that for a long time when we were growing up, this was a series that Wisconsin really dominated. And the
mhm,
last few years now, Wisconsin's hit some struggles a little bit. PJ Fleck, I mean, I know you can go on and on about the man, but kind of the job that he's done up there in Minneapolis to turn that program around. They've kind of dominated this series now as of late. Yes, so here we go. Um, three out of the last four now in Minnesota, and took one in 2018 as well. So I it would look like either he's 500 or he's got a slightly 4-3 record versus Wisconsin. PJ Fleck does, and that comes on the tails of this looks like a 13, 14-year winning streak for Wisconsin before Fleck's tenure. So
yeah, yeah, it was all Wisconsin Badger ball.
yeah, for years. So this is their second win in a row now in this series. Oh, sorry, actually, Wisconsin won last year. Minnesota won the 2 years before then. So, but 3 out of 4 years for them. It actually, I saw a tidbit about this one. The series is now tied 63-63 with 8 ties
Mhm.
with this win for
Yeah,
Minnesota. So, I mean, this is an all-time series, one of the oldest rivalry games in college football. Um, Tied up the series. I mean, you really couldn't ask for one better than that.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, the only way you probably could is the fact that it was PJ Fleck's 44th birthday.
Oh, was it
So
really?
you know, that's what this says, or they were celebrating it. If it wasn't the day after, but I'm pretty sure it was on that Friday. So I
Yeah,
mean, good for Coach. Congrats, Coach. And man, that's one way to celebrate for sure. I bet it was awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean
Uh,
this Minnesota team 7-5 now. I
mhm.
mean the week before almost beat Penn State. We had talked about that one. Played
Seven
Michigan
and
really
five.
close. I mean that's a team that a couple things swing their way. It's a 9-3 team, probably top 25 rankings.
Totally.
We
Oh,
talk about
totally.
them a lot differently, and I really don't think we do. I mean, I think we've been on this Minnesota train all year. That this is a really good team, not one you want to mess with come bowl season. Be interesting to see where they
Well,
land.
wherever they do land, I'll tell you what, you can put your bottom dollar that is probably going to be a win,
Yeah,
right?
what
I
am I
mean,
talking about? A 7-5 minutes. This is an eight
well,
and
who knows?
five
It's
Minnesota
got.
team.
I mean, 8 and 5, unless they're playing a slew of teams, it's going to be great to watch them play their bowl game.
Yeah,
So it's good for them. Um, and we don't have to touch on all these games, but I mean, UCLA took care of business against Fresno State
yep,
2013. A bigger one really was Indiana whopped Purdue
yeah,
66-0. Indiana was looking all types of the number 10 team in the country that they actually are. So that was fun. Not so much for Purdue. But like we've said, basketball season is here in West Lafayette, so good for them.
yeah. 66 nothing in that game. It actually ushered out Purdue head coach Ryan Walters. Got the boot just today, I think, actually, or yesterday. So he's out after 2 years in West Lafayette. So it'll be interesting to see where that coaching search goes. It'll be a. It's interesting. There was a quote. It would have been yesterday actually because I was reading about this last night. He had a quote. He said something on his way out like, "My NIL war chest is only like $400,000." Maybe not what you want to say after you've been fired. Other programs will look at that and be like, "What? You're just gonna, talk smack about us if we let go of you?" But um, I guess some Purdue people said that's when he started at the beginning of the 2023 season, and they have more funds available now. And then the funds that they do have, they've been kind of focused on basketball last couple of years. It's kind of
Sure.
where their ROI has been. Obviously, that national championship appearance earlier
Yeah, I
this
mean, it's
year.
where their history is.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. But I think it's an attractive job to land. I mean, they've had success there in the Big Ten title game just 2 years ago. So
Mhm,
going
mhm,
1-11 this season, I mean, they fell hard for sure, but they've proven
mhm.
they can compete. That was in the Big Ten West. It's a little different now with the open schedule. Um, but yeah, man, I mean, like this revenue sharing is going to start here in a year or two. TV dollars coming in from the Big Ten. I mean, they will have money available to bring in good players. Have a good, strong football history. Really, I mean, I think a lot of coaches will be interested in taking over that job. Just kind of sucks for him. He really good DC at Illinois. Um, just couldn't make it work there in Purdue. I saw something
Yeah.
interesting actually. So I guess he was the DC there in Champaign,
Mhm.
and the way his defense was super good in 2022. That Illinois team was actually really good. That was the first time they beat Iowa. Not to completely homer, but as Iowa fans, this is the first time Illinois had beaten Iowa in something like 7-8 years in that 2022 season.
Mhm.
And I saw some analysis. The way he runs his defense is very like man coverage almost exclusively. So he really needs like good cornerbacks and safeties, like elite level cornerbacks and safeties to really
Sure.
make it work. And Purdue didn't have
Yeah.
that available. You go back, that 2022 team had Devon Witherspoon, who was like fourth overall pick or whatever in that year's draft, tearing it
Uh-huh,
up for
uh-huh,
Seattle.
uh-huh.
Um, so it'll be
No,
interesting.
that's
I mean, I think he could slot right back into a DC role somewhere um, with a little bit better talent than he had at Purdue and probably find some success again. So,
no, that's interesting. There's definitely something to that, I think for sure. Um, in the same breath, you obviously have to adapt and play
mhm.
with what you got, and that's like the true testament to a good team and defense and schemes and stuff. But I mean, no, that's awesome. I didn't know that that's what that path was for him.
Yeah, I want to give him some of his
Um,
flowers. It always sucks getting fired, but he,
no,
he might be the only one
and
out of the Big Ten this year. You know what I mean? So maybe not too much of a coaching carousel around the conference. So have
yeah,
an
I
interesting look.
mean, I I I think earlier I was making jokes this year about maybe Lincoln Riley losing or maybe being on a hot seat. I don't want to talk about that game. I mean, Notre Dame rolled. The fact that they scored 49 points, it was excuse me, it was tied at half, 14-14, but ended up beating out USC 49-35. Big kind of hot topic on here. You can't really find it on Twitter or whatever. If you go on Instagram or TikTok, it's really hard to find the clip of that kid throwing that punch, right? And so, not that that's like something to really talk about. We'll talk more about like all the extracurriculars that happened last week or this past weekend. More so, I just want to talk about how good Notre Dame looked. And their coach did say that like that was like one of the better performances all year long from them on an offensive side. I gotta pull up this quote really quick. But do you have any thoughts about this game? I mean, it was a super fun game to watch. It's always fun to watch these two teams play. There's history in this match.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, while you're pulling that quote up, I do have a couple of thoughts. 49-35, like you said, and tied at halftime. I was watching a lot of this game, actually. This is that Saturday afternoon game on CBS. So Gary Danielson is the color commentator there. He said something about the way the game was going. I forget the analogy. I wish I would have remembered. But it was super accurate. Basically, he was saying, like, this is they can't really get stops. It's just going back and forth. And it's going to be whoever gets that stop first. And Notre Dame had a pretty big turnover in the third quarter that kind of allowed them to build that cushion. And, I mean, USC kept scoring. They put up another 14 points in the fourth quarter. So, really all offense in this game. But Notre Dame got the benefit of a couple big stops and big turnovers there in the second half to pull ahead. And Notre Dame, independent team, so not Big Ten. They have rivalries with like half the Big Ten. So I feel like this isn't too out of line for the show, but what a fluke earlier in the year. The more we look back on that Northern Illinois game, I mean, what was going on that day? Because this is now an 11-1 team. Definitely punched their ticket to the playoff and going to have one of these home games in the first weekend.
But probably would have been number 2 outright.
Yeah, I mean, they'd definitely be number 2, if not number 1. I could see that. Well, Oregon has that Ohio State win.
We're having that conversation between them and the Ducks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that just goes to show how awesome things are going for Northern Illinois. That was an incredible day. And it's still fun to go back and watch those clips and watch that coach and just watch how that's pure joy in everyone's face.
And that's what college football is all about, is those fun upsets. Well, we got one that happened in the Big Ten this week we'll talk about, but and it's not like, I mean, one thing if like, we talked a lot this season about that Oregon Boise State game, like week 2. And in the greater college football world, that game's been talked about a lot because Boise State's top 10, just got to win this weekend and punch their ticket to the playoffs. Their only loss on the year was 3 points to the number 1 team in the country. So it's like, if Oregon would have lost that game and been 11-1, I think that's still a top 5 team, because then you look at Boise State, they're undefeated, and, that's not a bad loss. Northern Illinois went like 7-5. Like, this wasn't like a good team, even by MAC standards, but they had, they were a better team on one special Saturday, and that's all it comes down to sometimes. So
totally.
Did you find the quote? Sorry.
Well, no, you're right. And it's in the same breath. Like, he's just talking about Coach Freeman was talking about like how like they never put out the fight in this game, and that's what he loved about this performance in particular. And I think like they obviously having a loss like that, you can hang that up in the locker room and talk about that week in and week out. But I also think USC was a team that they could have lost to, or more so USC could have won this game, just because we've seen really good USC performances throughout the year, right?
Yeah.
And 35 points is a good amount of points to beat most teams. Probably would have won them more games some of the weeks where they didn't put on a lot of points, right? But Lincoln Riley actually said himself about how we had a couple opportunities to make competitive plays in the second half, but they just made a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And
100%.
And that's just what you saw. And that's kind of, I think, speaks more to that, testament to that they are maybe number 2 team in the country, obviously top 5. And yeah, man, I mean, very exciting. I don't know if we can call that an entirely a Big Ten rivalry week or whatever that is.
Half Big
It
Ten.
feels a little weird in there, but
Yeah, I mean it's both teams' like biggest rival. I mean USC's biggest rival, maybe
true,
UCLA,
true.
and it's Notre Dame's biggest rival. You just half is
Yeah.
in the Big Ten. Um, yeah, I mean next year it'll be in South Bend, so they'll play it in October. So USC, I imagine, will get UCLA on Thanksgiving weekend. They'll kind of
Okay.
rotate depending on where the game's at. So they got that whole weird thing they do with this one, but
Sure.
yeah, I
Smart
mean, this is
thinking.
the last thing on USC. This is a team that's going bowling. Made the quarterback
Yep.
switch to Jaden Mayava 3-4 games ago. Miller Moss did announce he intends to transfer. He'll be entering the portal. He got linked
Hmm.
to. He's currently linked to two other Big Ten teams, Michigan and Iowa. So
Oh,
be interesting where he ends up.
interesting.
His other two teams were Auburn and Louisville, I believe. On Three Sports had a little graphic about where he's looking. So
Okay, very cool.
portal opens. I don't know if it's open yet. You can announce your
I don't think it
intent.
is.
A couple more
It's good.
days,
It's
like next
pretty
week.
soon. Pretty
Yeah,
soon.
that'll
Yeah.
be open
I mean,
for
and
20 days. So it'll be interesting to see.
yeah,
We'll have to do a portal episode. We haven't talked about that yet, but I know
yeah.
following Iowa a little
There-
closer than some other teams, we've had some guys announce their intention to enter the portal.
mhm.
The way it
Well,
goes.
there's been a lot of announcements today on social medias too, not just Iowa's football, but like lots of
Mhm.
Big Ten. Like now that there's like signing days and commitment opportunities and stuff.
Yep.
So, congrats to all the players who get signed, especially to a Big Ten program. I think if there's not another game you really want to talk about from this last weekend, we should talk about
Uh,
the elephant in the room.
Yeah, well, there's one just because this is one of the ones we covered, and then this will be quick. But I just thought it was an interesting final score, and just what a interesting team to dissect in a way is Rutgers destroying Michigan State and locking them out of
Okay.
a bowl game, 41-14.
Yeah.
Michigan State had to win to play an extra game, and those 15 extra practices you get from playing in a bowl game are huge. I think
Hmm.
we've talked a lot about Aiden Childs this year, and that he's very young still, doesn't quite have the maturity of a senior quarterback that's been there, done that. I think those 15 practices would have been huge. And it's kind of a bummer for Michigan State to get beat down the way they did and get locked out of a bowl game. But Rutgers, I mean, that was an interesting team this year. Ended up 7-5, and going bowling for sure.
4-5 in conference, which
Yeah,
does look a whole lot better than the 3-6 that Michigan State's toting.
yeah,
So no, you're totally right about that. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, Childs didn't get his only touchdown until the fourth quarter, when things were already far too out of hand.
yep,
So we'll see him next year. I
absolutely.
wouldn't think he's the type of guy who would hit the portal. I don't think
No,
he
no,
needs
no.
to.
He
He's got
did.
the spot.
He did
He's just
last
got
year.
to get more reps.
He did last year to follow his coach, and I don't think
Yeah,
Jonathan
yeah,
Smith
yeah,
is going anywhere. It's
exactly.
a bit of a project for him in Michigan State, and there's, I think, a big step forward with that team this year compared to the
Mhm.
way they looked last season. So we'll see more from Coach Smith and Childs next season. It'll be interesting to see how they look when we get around to a preview app, maybe like August of next year. Who knows? That's it for those games. You want to segue us, like you said, the elephant in the room, the big one this weekend.
Well, so and before I said that, I guess there's actually two elephants in the room,
Okay,
or however you want to look at
it's a
it.
lot of
First
elephants.
off, I know that like the zoo's out. Well, first off, Illinois, we didn't talk about, or did we talk about Illinois Northwestern?
We did not.
Okay, Illinois won.
Okay, I like the sticker.
Shocker. Um, More so, got to talk about the bigger one, the Iowa Northwestern, or no, not Northwestern. Sorry, Iowa Nebraska.
Yep.
Illinois played Northwestern, beat them. Don't care. Northwestern has also had some pretty rough basketball, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But luck in basketball, I'm trying to say, not rough. They look good. Look bad luck. But no, we had the Iowa Nebraska Black Friday game. Everyone knows every year this is for some reason a nail biter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just for one reason, it's just gritty. I've said how big of a game this is for the fans of Nebraska, right? Every year they hang their whole hats on it. If they win it, it's oh my goodness, we're on top of the moon, right? And I thought I thought they were going to win it the whole time.
I think
The
everybody.
whole time I thought they were going to win it.
Yeah.
And you can. I'll let you get kind of the first words on this, but I will say the game happened this past weekend. Tonight when I was at Chili's, I heard a guy 3 booths next to me, and I'm in Chicagoland, people. This guy was explaining the Iowa game from like start to finish. He was an Iowa fan for sure. He didn't look like he wasn't wearing anything. He looked like Peter Griffin in real life, dude. It was for real. But he was explaining it to like his daughter or something, and it was just beautiful to listen to that
Yeah.
through the eyes of someone who loves that game. He sounded like he was there, right? Talking about that 75 or 72-yard run. I mean, incredible to watch, right? No one can pull this guy down.
Yeah.
So I want to hear what you have to say about it, but the Hawks won 13-10 in very Black Friday fashion.
Yeah. I mean, it's deja vu all over again. Last year's final score 13-10 on a walk-off field goal. 13-10 this year, Drew Stevens, walk-off field goal. Did you see his interview right away? They went and found him on the field. It's like, I blacked out. I don't even know. It's like,
and you can tell
all the tweets and Reddit comments and stuff were like, was he drunk? Like, is he drunk? It's like, no. He's just maybe, but
in the moment, that's like the craziest feeling ever.
Yeah.
You can see, and if you watch it too, there's a clip on on Iowa's Instagram of like him kicking it and it going in and everyone celebrating, but then him realizing, and then he like takes off towards the other end of the field.
I mean, it just barely snuck in too. He got the practice kickoff because Rule called the timeout to ice him, and that one was like bang down the middle and had like another 10 yards of leg on it. How 53 yards? I mean, he would have been good for probably 60 at least on the practice one.
And that's what he said. He said the first ball was way better.
The second one, I mean, as soon as it went up, I was like, I think it's good, but it just barely snuck on past that right goalpost, I guess.
A slice of cheese for sure. He barely snuck that in. But I mean, that was a game until the end, man.
Yeah.
And I know we were talking a lot about it, talking about the quarterback kind of woes there. And I know it was freezing cold this game, and I'm sure that was getting to players, whether you're tough or not. That ball just does freeze up, and you could kind of see people dropping balls all over the place. But I think the biggest play, minus the field goal, obviously game winner, is that strip sack.
Oh, 100%. And that leads into the deja vu over again. Last year it was a late pick thrown by Nebraska with like less than a minute on the clock in Iowa territory, or in Nebraska territory, sorry, that set up a chip shot type field goal. And this year the strip sack, Max Llewellyn, I mean, it's a guy that has gotten his reps on the D line this year, but not the starter on the depth chart, with some graduating seniors, will be next year. And what a way to make your mark. I mean, and really build some excitement for what that D-line could possibly look like come 2025. Just a gamer type play, man. Like,
it was awesome.
Came down with it too.
And he got it himself, and I think he knew right away.
Yeah.
But one thing too, just statistically, 20 first downs for Nebraska. They were kind of getting whatever they wanted whenever they wanted. It just felt like they, even on those third downs, they had some good looks. Just weren't scoring, right?
Yep.
Lots of punts. I think there were 10 back and forth in the first half of possession changes, just based on those things. A lot of that was based off Iowa not being able to get first down. They had 5 first downs the whole game.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you break down the numbers. 334 yards from the Cornhuskers compared to just 164 out of the Hawks. And 20 first downs compared to 5, like you said. Also 39 minutes.
Of those came on one play from one insane effort from someone named Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
Last game for him, he did say, and so he is going to have to be the big boy of this week, and a salute to service, because he will be definitely on a roster in the 32 teams of the National Football League.
Yeah.
So we'll be excited to see what happens for him for sure. But I mean, that's one thing I love and hate about just sports in general, is just postseason and all those things. But we're going bowling. I was going bowling. Nebraska's still going bowling with that 6-6 record, but Jay Higgins let Matt Rule know at the end of the game if you saw at the start, and this is kind of what I was talking about alluding to earlier, how it's like such a big deal for Nebraska fans. They didn't shake hands. They like refused to shake hands. The captains did at the coin toss. Okay, I guess you asked for it. And if you watch the end, after that kick goes in, Jay Higgins runs across the field, hand out to shake Matt Rule's hand. And I just think it's just like, I mean, it's not even insult to injury. It's almost like this story wrote itself again. And like you said, deja vu is the perfect way to put it. It just gets better and better every year. And it was super fun to watch. So way to go for Iowa. Do you have anything more you want to talk about on this one?
No, I mean, I was reading off the stats. I mean, the difference is no turnovers from Iowa and 2 for Nebraska. And if I could listen to Peter Griffin's real life doppelganger at Chili's earlier tonight talk about the Iowa game, awesome. I would hope he said something about that. And that's the way Iowa plays a lot of these games is just get a couple timely turnovers, get the hidden yards on special teams. I saw this online as well earlier this week. Iowa's average starting field position was almost 20 yards closer to the end zone than Nebraska's was. So that's not something that shows up in this 164 to 334, but having a punter like Reese Dakin and having a defense that can pin Nebraska deep, and when they punt the ball and their their special teams isn't quite as good, and there were, Caden Weegan as Iowa's returner can return it a little bit more than Nebraska's guys can. You get some of those hidden yards on special teams that set up, field goals and just a couple of them, and a long touchdown on a swing pass that Caleb Johnson just gets his one opportunity to shine and he takes it and that sort of thing. I mean, it's not pretty to watch. It's very frustrating to watch a lot of the time as an Iowa fan, but it works. It gets a win. So 8-4 for the Hawks, 6-6 for Nebraska. We did talk a lot about them last week. Get that bowl eligibility for the first time since we were in high school, you and I. So disappointing way to end the year, but I think a high note for them. Talking about the practices, those extra 15 are going to be huge for a young quarterback like Dylan Raiola going into 2025. So that's all I got for that one.
No, I think that's all good to say. He really looks the part for sure. Patrick Mahomes Jr. He just leans into it. And just watching him, he's fun to watch, man. I'm excited to watch him. I'm excited to watch Aiden Childs. Both those guys are probably the 2 great young guns that we're going to get to keep watching for a few more years in this and keep talking about. But okay, no, let's get to the actual elephant in the room. The other one that we brought in. I know we have a few in here now, but this one is the game, right? They call it the game, as pretentious as that is. Both these schools.
Ohio State does the thing. They X off all the M's around campus, and
did you know the practice squad wears Michigan uniforms during the week?
Yep, I did know that.
Corny.
Yeah, it is, and it isn't. You know what I mean? It's kind of. You say it's pretentious to call the game. I mean, it is the game. It is the best rivalry in college football, hands down.
And it is, and maybe it is cool. I guess the fact is it doesn't get the job done. And Ryan Day didn't get the job done. And the final score, same final score as the last game we talked about, 13-10, right? So this game was also a nail-biter, and it was 10-10 at half. And the third quarter scoreless. And watching the end of the game, you're thinking, honestly, Ohio State can put this away at any moment, right? And there are a few chances that I thought they were going to do it. And then a few big plays here and there, a couple big turnovers, and all of a sudden, Michigan is lining up to take a game-winning field goal. So, what are your thoughts, first off, before we get into, the aftermath?
Yeah, that second half, it was 10-10 at half, like you said. That second half just was one of the weirdest halves of football I've watched in a while. And that it seemed like either one of the way the game was going, it seemed like the next score wins, even if it would have been with 5 minutes left in the third quarter.
Yeah, right.
And it took
more and more as the game went on.
And it took, I had pulled up the box just to get the time right. Took until 45 seconds left in the fourth quarter, but that next score did win. Dominic Zavada, Michigan kicker, 21-yard chip shot field goal. They drove down 57 yards, burned off 5:28 off the clock in 11 plays. And watching that drive, it was like, I mean, they got in field goal range. It was like, okay, you can just burn clock. And they did very efficiently. Got down to a 1st and goal at like the 3-yard line, couldn't punch it in. Didn't matter. You can't punch it in, but you're burning time and making Ohio State chew timeouts and all this sort of thing. Put away the easy field goal and make the stop on defense. They got 1 first down, I think, on that final drive, and then nothing from there. Turnover on downs and end the ball game. So, Ohio State's losses now combined 4 points in 2 games. Both of them ended with they had the ball and couldn't make it work. So they're in an interesting, precarious situation. You mentioned Ryan Day. Now 4 straight losses to Michigan. This is a team that you'll see in the playoffs. They're kind of right on the cusp of whether they get that home game or if they'll be traveling somewhere in the first weekend. But it seems like in these big games, when it's big moments that you're going to have in the playoffs, twice now this year, they have not been able to get it done. Coaching issue, pressure issue, I don't know what you want to call it, but something's going on there. That
in Columbus for sure.
Yeah,
there's a ghost in the room.
I don't know your thoughts. Yeah, I'll leave it to you of what you think maybe is going on with Columbus and Ohio State and where their potential now in the playoffs looks like. I mean, I'm not very hopeful.
Reality, they'll probably get either a away game, I think, and be like in like the middle to like lower end there, or like they'll be dropped even lower. Who knows?
I couldn't see them getting pushed out.
Like you saying though, the fact is they've lost by 4 points like total, right? Or 5 points or whatever it is. It's brutal to watch, brutal to see. Ryan Day is a good coach. Ohio State is Ohio State, right? It's an incredible program. It has the money. It has the recruits. It has all these things. It's a machine. It's about one of the as machiney as it gets when it comes to college football at this level. I think at this point, right? Especially in the Big Ten, but. So it could be a hot spot for him right now. I think the hotter spot is the fact that the reaction to the flag planting. I mean, is it corny to plant a flag? Maybe, but at the same time, like you said, it's the biggest rivalry in the country in the year. If it was a basketball game, kids would be storming a court, right?
Yeah.
Like if it was a home game, Michigan would have been storming a court. The guys plant the flag because that's like what is like available to do. And is it unnecessary? Yes and no, right? I think it's awesome. I think you don't react like that. I know that's not going to be the reason why he ever loses his job is because like guys reacted like that.
Yeah. But
I wish that Ohio State would have like lived up to the Ohio State standard, I guess, in that moment. And it was just like it was ugly to watch on both sides. And you can go back and and see all that stuff. And I know there's like repercussions that have been handed out and stuff.
Yep.
More so in terms of his job status.
They said they won't pay it. Yeah, they said they won't pay his buyout. It's like $37 million.
And right, I don't think anyone at Ohio State is looking at Ryan Day. I mean, like obviously they're mad, but they're not mad at him in the same way that people are. Like Bears fans are mad at Eberflus. You know what I mean? It's just frustration that everyone holds. And I think Ryan Day's been very candid about how he feels about all of it too. And you can see that like it eats it inside of him. And maybe that's even worse than being fired and let go from it. The fact that he has to keep figuring this out until he gets this monkey off his back. And so we'll get to keep seeing that. And I think it'll be fun and good for Michigan. They have a winning season now by facto of winning this game.
Mhm.
So also good for them. I wouldn't thought that was happening
Yeah, the
two
way it
weeks ago,
was.
3 weeks ago. Honestly, throughout the most of the season, they look kind of booty, and then some one way to another, they're getting a bowl game, right? So
Yeah,
national champions will have another positive season after that, and Ohio State still has a lot to prove. We'll see. Man, the game, it is the game, and that was a good game.
yeah. We'll talk about. We got a mailbag question about the fight, so we'll break down the fight just a little more in the specifics there. But last thing about
Hmm.
the game and Ryan Day's future. Um, I don't know if you saw this just the other day. Andrew Luck is taking over the GM position of the general manager of football for Stanford, his alma mater. And this is a position we've started to see in just the last few years. Alabama, the second highest paid coach on Alabama's staff is Courtney Morgan, I believe is his name. He is general manager. So
Hmm.
obviously, the NFL and professional sports, you have the GMs that hire a head coach, that sort of thing. It's kind of opposite right now, at least. This head coach or maybe the AD hires a GM. That kind of just with between all of now, already it was a big job, coming up with your game plan, coaching your guys, being on the practice field, being in the weight room, all of that, on top of recruiting. But now you got to throw in not just recruiting high school kids, but recruiting kids out of the portal and NIL in just the last few years. And those two extra tasks that are crucially important, as we've seen in the last few years, the teams that are most successful are teams that have NIL money available to them and
Yeah,
have
yeah.
been successful in the transfer portal. That you're bringing in GMs. One of the things I've seen about Ryan Day is Ohio State's recruiting class. They're still consistently top five,
Hmm.
and he's been a
Hmm.
great recruiter. He was a great recruiter under Urban Meyer, very good assistant head coach, that sort of thing. I don't think he would. It seems it's like a demotion in a way, at least as it looks right now. But it's something interesting where it's like, is he a better fit in like a GM type role, whether it's at Ohio State or someone else? Is he not the game planning, game manager type head coach that wins in these close games, but has everything else for you? I mean, they had a $20 million NIL budget or whatever it was to bring in the guys they did. The recruiting
Hmm.
classes are consistently at the top. They have the talent there, but it seems like in these close moments now, twice this year, his coaching is not getting something done where it's like, hey, maybe you're not the guy to be on the sideline right there with the guys. You're the guy that goes and brings them in. You're the guy that goes and secures this NIL money, talks to the boosters, all this sort of thing. And maybe these dichotomy of roles and where we'll see that go in the future. No question with that, really. It's just something I've kind of thought about as we see roles within college football really evolve in the last few years and how they'll continue to evolve the way the game is just changing. And Ryan Day and his style is maybe very emblematic of that. So um,
No,
with
it's
that,
definitely interesting.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
mean, no, I saw that Luck got that job too, and I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of that perked me up. I was like interested to see what that will look like. So yeah, there's definitely something there. I think Ohio State fans are also ruthless, and because of that, I'll post it. There's a TikTok I saved. I might have sent it to you. It was like a dad and his goober son just like being like, "You got to fire Ryan Day," and like that was the worst football you've ever seen. But like, they're their own worst enemy,
Yeah.
and they'll always get in the way. And I think you have a good point there. I think there's people who like the real people who put money into it would look past those things, but I think like there's just like an air in the room too where it's like if you can't beat Michigan, like how can I like take your word?
Especially
Uh
when you're number two in the country and Michigan's struggling to stay 500.
and it's the game.
Yeah.
So I mean, look at how much tape did we just spend putting all across every single M in this gosh dang state.
Yeah. With that,
Anything?
no,
Yeah,
nothing with the
no, oh,
game. We had this mailbag question, like I said,
yeah, please.
and break. We mentioned a little bit already. It's hard not to really deep dive into this brawl that happened afterwards and the flag planting, all that. Our question was that came into us was, what do you think the consequences are from today's brawl? It was sent in on Saturday, so Saturday's brawl. So the
Yep,
Big Ten did levy penalties. I think 100,000 fine for both teams. I don't know if I
yep.
saw suspensions. Maybe you did. You could fill me in there. but at least a fine for both teams. My immediate thought, and I'll turn to you, but the clip from the press box, somebody saw that took a video when they started seeing the flag planting, and then they go, "Oh no!" You can hear him in the background. Michigan's all celebrating in the middle of the field. Ohio State is walking into the locker room. One of their guys turns around, shouts to his teammates, coaches, whatever. Hey, they're planting the flag, and you see then the red jerseys run all the way back over to the middle of the field and kind of start this. So. I'm not there in the middle of the field. I only know what I've seen from these videos and that sort of thing. But to me, it seems like Ohio State is a little salty at the end of the game, as they are. Not a statement of Ohio State and culture, but just as any team would be in that situation, losing to your bitter rival at home. But it seems like they were the kind of antagonizer in this situation. And I get Michigan fought back and all that sort of thing, but I don't know. Punishments are there. What's your takeaway, and what do you think maybe is the long-term consequence of this? Short-term or long-term?
Crazy. It happened in so many games.
It did.
And it felt like a full moon, like Friday the 13th type day. Just like I would get on my phone every so often, I'd be like, no way. Is that Virginia Tech pregame fighting? Like,
yeah.
No way there's another post about, like, rivalry games or, like, the Trident, dude. An actual Arizona State that was a weapon on the field. We have to be careful now. No, I'm just saying.
Their mascots were fighting, dude. Those Sparky the Sun Devil, and whatever the Wildcat. I don't know if he has a Cosmo, or is that?
I don't know.
That's BYU's, I think. Whatever.
No, they were throwing real. Those guys
yeah,
were throwing real punches.
The mascots were getting into it, dude. Like, what was going on?
I don't know, man. It's just something was in the air.
Yeah.
Kirk Herbstreit was talking about kind of aftermath, and
I did not.
This is kind of
what did he say?
My gut reaction too. He verbalized it better in terms of who should be bringing these things to light. I guess conference managers, or like the commissioner, whoever's in charge of the Big Ten, these people who are able to actually send out the fines, $100,000, drop in the bucket. What are we doing here? That's just like a slap on the wrist when we really think about it. Suspend the players. My thought, and kind of like a tongue-in-cheek thing when I was talking about it with friends over the weekend, was anyone who threw a punch or like was actively involved shouldn't be able to play in the next game. And if that means you have 15 guys who can dress, you have 15 guys who can dress, and you go and play. And it just is what it is. Because I think it's really bad. I think it's a really bad look. I think it's an awesome, like, planting the flag, get over it. Get over yourself, first off, right? You lost. I've lost some big games coaching, playing, nothing nearly something as big as that. But like last year, like we had some pretty bad losses and had to walk out of there, and that's never fun, right? Especially to watch other teams enjoy it, especially on your field. Totally understand that. But at the same time, like you have to like swallow that. So Kirk Herbstreit saying like, the fact that we need to like actually like crack down on this, and whether it's the bowl game or whether it's the playoff game, they should be sitting out. I think if that's the case, especially when you see something like that where it's all day long, like, and then do it across all those games, not just this Michigan Ohio State thing. And is that kind of throwing a wrench in the system? Maybe. Is that being a party pooper? Maybe. But then also, it's deterring it from next year.
Yeah, I think that's a strong punishment. And I think the issue is where you draw the line of who's throwing punches or not, because you're going to defend your guys. You know, in any fight like that, there's guys that antagonize, and there's guys that goes to protect. So I think both Ohio State and Michigan, you have the guys that are right in the thick of it, and maybe you suspend those. But it's tough when you're like somebody coming in, you're like, hey, my QB's getting, wrestled to the ground here. I'm going to go in and throw a couple punches to, pull the guys off of him and protect my guy. It's like, do you suspend that guy for defending himself and his team? I don't know. It's tough. do I agree that the 100K suspension is, or it's not suspension, penalty, fine rather, is light? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just mentioned Ohio State's $20 million NIL budget. I mean, 100,000 doesn't even get you a starting or backup linebacker for a team like Ohio State. So it's like 100K. Come on.
An Ohio State fan would watch that and be like, "I'll pay the 100K right now to watch them do it again."
Yeah.
Like no, that was the Kirk Herbstreit, and it is aggressive for sure.
Yeah.
I like it because it's aggressive and because it's funny. To see what would happen in a game where like Ohio State does that, and now they actually have to go play a conference game, but they're not like. Here's the thing: we're missing out. Unfortunately, we're the ones who are missing out, and we're the real losers at the end of the day. America is, Big Ten fans are, because we don't get to see them play in the championship, the Big Ten championship.
Did you want to see them there?
We talked a little bit last week. We did. And the more I think about it, I like that would have been a great way to cap off that rematch in Indianapolis. And now it's not them. Now it's going to be Oregon playing against Penn State. And we all can kind of read the room right now. Oregon's going to be 13-0.
You think so? They're favored only by 3.5.
Because, and I get that, but like that's just a safety thing too. And I get it; anything can happen in big games. But
ESPN match predictor favors Penn State 54%.
And I'll fade that, and I'll continue to fade that. Just, I mean, the ridiculous run that Oregon has had this year. I don't think Penn State can win the big games, as we've kind of talked about this year, as James Franklin has dealt with it, as fans have yelled at him as he walked off the fields this year.
Yeah.
We'll see. Crazier things have happened, and crazier things have happened in Indianapolis. But more often than not, I feel like the championship game in Indianapolis has kind of always favored one team, and it just starts to take over. Like it. I don't know the last time that game was a close game.
Right. It hasn't been for many years because of the East-West thing, and the West was very strong and competitive the first few, I think it was 10 years of the East-West split. Maybe the first 5, the West hung there, and it was close games. Obviously, we're very familiar with the Iowa-Michigan State game that came down to that final drive. Wisconsin lost on a walk-off one year. Got blown out by Ohio State a different year. And then really just Wisconsin started hitting a down spell. Nebraska never really figured it out. Iowa had the struggles on offense. Purdue snuck in one year where it seemed like then the Big Ten West got a really bad rap at the end. So not to segue completely off from the game, but that's where a lot of that came from, I believe. I was pulling up some stats. This is a blowout type game. I don't think this one will be. These teams match up very interestingly. I've talked a lot about that Penn State defense. They're second in the Big Ten for points allowed per game, just 14 points, and third for yards allowed at just 266. Who's the offensive leader in yards? Well, that'd be the Oregon Ducks, 448.5. Who's fourth place then in yards allowed? That's the Oregon Ducks at 283.9. Who's second place in yards per game on the offensive side? Well, that'd be Penn State, 442.8. So these are not just very good defenses. These are very good offenses. We've talked about Dylan Gabriel a lot. But that Penn State offense gets yards too. It's more spread out. They're second in rushing yards per game behind Iowa, not in the top 5 for passing yards. Aller doesn't necessarily have to do that or be asked to throw the ball the way that Dylan Gabriel is. But this is a Penn State team that can really spread the ball around. It's a front 4 on Oregon that's very tough, very strong. It's a whole defensive unit for Penn State that I really like, where I don't know. I think I'm going to go with, or I'm going to agree with you that it's 13-0, but you came in with that they're going to be 13-0. I don't, no doubt in my mind. I would not be surprised if Penn State wins this game.
Okay. And I mean, surprised, I get it because they earned their way to play in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Warren is a great tight end. After last week, I think he broke the every official tight end Penn State record or whatever at this point. I mean, like he's been dominant week in, week out.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Oregon has more than one option when it comes to the receiving core. And Dylan Gabriel, I know he's not going to win Heisman because of the hype around Travis Hunter and playing both ways and all that stuff. I get it. And, like, that's fine. Dylan Gabriel probably putting on, as of now, the quarterback performance of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless someone wants to challenge me on that, obviously it's great quarterbacks, but being number one, being 12-0, and if they win this game, there's gonna be that case.
Mm-hmm.
So, I get it. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout like some of these other games, but I could see it being 2 scores or 10 points, and maybe a late score here or there to make it look closer at the end, but in reality, someone just being in the driver's seat from the get-go, and I'm afraid I'm afraid for America that is the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's gonna be exciting. I think everyone should be tuning into this one. I don't know what else will be going on at that time, but it's like the marquee game that night. So
the ACC championship is at the same time, SMU and Clemson.
Oh, okay. That's good to know, actually. And there's some exciting stuff about that. If you didn't see Syracuse hit the coach going, how he got Miami into that one.
Beating them a few weeks ago?
Well, after Syracuse won their game this past week, they beat Miami, right?
Was that just this past weekend?
Yeah.
Was it? Okay, I thought it was 2 weeks ago. Sorry.
Oh, no. No. Well, I'm the one who got confused. The fact that they beat Miami is what I'm trying to say is they got Clemson into the ACC.
Oh, yeah.
Matchup. And he was saying he got Dabo in. And there's clips of him like going crazy. Being like, I got you in, baby. This is funny. So, I mean, Syracuse ball, good for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
More so than not, I think the game will be, this is the game that you watch at that point.
I agree.
Both games will be fun to watch.
So
do you have more you want to talk
number 3
about?
matchup, man. I mean, that is easily must watch.
Yeah.
Football-wise, anything more to talk about? We had one more question that came in. This was IRL to me, so I don't know if you saw this. It's a pretty fun one and pretty quick.
No, you go for it.
It was I
think I know what you're getting at.
It was end of football season. So, what was your favorite uni combo this year of these Big Ten teams? Your favorite uniform set from the 2024 regular season?
I
would have to bet Oregon will come out with something normal because it's a big game, just green or plain white, school colors. Obviously, Penn State isn't much in the creative department.
Are you asking me what I think they're going to wear?
No. Going back 15 weeks of the season, what were your favorite?
Like what my favorite was?
Yeah, who was
all the teams?
Yeah. Because I know mine.
Okay, you tell me yours. I mean, I have mine off the top. I know it, but I was also looking for a picture of it.
Okay. Well, you talk about yours. I'll find my picture, but I'll mention it. Mine were. And maybe a homer because I watched all this game because it was a game I was involved in. UCLA's throwback uniforms, the Friday night they played Iowa, were very clean. They have some of the best uniforms anyway. The powder blue and the gold with the gold pants is such a clean look. And when they play USC and they both can wear, USC wearing the red and UCLA wearing the blue is an amazing matchup visually. But even without USC involved, the powder blues that UCLA rocks are awesome. They did these throwback ones. It's like 1940s or something maybe. The number styling was super cool. The gold was a little more old-timey. The powder blue had a little more fadedness to it, like, from back in the day.
Yeah.
I'll find a picture here. I think those are my favorites. Obviously, Oregon's got some great uniforms. I know you love those Rutgers All Blacks that they ran.
I do. I do love the Rutgers All Black. But my actual answer is the uniforms that were worn during the Little Brown Jug game.
Okay.
By Minnesota, the all white with the Golden Gopher, like the white helmet with the running Goldie.
Okay,
Sweet.
you got
It
your pick.
was, and you can kind of see it. It's like
Oh yeah,
half
yeah,
like
yep.
faded in there. I'll go their Instagram. I'm sure they have a better picture of it when they were actually playing that game.
I did get
But
the
I,
UCLA pick.
I'm a
That
sucker. I just think anytime when you have like the blown up logo, an oversized logo, especially on a football helmet, it can look pretty clean. And a white backdrop always looks really awesome. And wearing something like that into another team's uh, stadium, I think is even more cocky, to be honest, and awesome. So I was excited. I thought those were sweet when they announced those. I've honestly thought about those a couple times. Yeah, and I like all the blackouts. I thought the Rutgers blackout was pretty sweet too.
cool. A lot of good picks.
Do we?
Oh, I mean, the other
Do you?
thing, last thing on that, and then we'll move on to basketball. I know we wanted to get into.
Well, did you want to talk about your other the other question from the mailbag or
I
later?
think we'll save that right to close out the show. No,
Okay,
know what the
perfect,
question is,
perfect.
but no, I think even if teams didn't do special uniforms, you have such a great pick of uniforms across the Big Ten. Even like, I just mentioned Penn State, not one for creativity. The navy with the white and just the stripe down, I mean, it's such a clean look. And like, I mean, if they ever change it, it'd be like, what are you guys doing? Michigan with like the winged helmets is awesome. Iowa with the Steelers-esque uniforms, a bit of a homer pick there, but those are great.
Mhm.
Washington's purple is awesome.
The
Uh,
purple sweet,
I
and
think,
they have the athletic gold, which is always nice
yeah,
too. I mean, yeah, with all the teams now, like every kind of gold is kind of put on display, which is funny.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's it for football. I think we'll review that championship game on next week's episode. We'll get a little portal talk one of these days here once it kind of opens up and we really see where guys are going. We'll have to do a bowl preview too once that gets there. But man, football's kind of in the rear view now, or getting to it. And we're getting into the thick of basketball, man.
I
Yeah,
found
there you
it.
go. Okay.
That's what it was. I Once they drop those, I like walk into your trap, take over your trap. That's what that says.
With the
And
white unis and white pants too. I mean, that's always a good look when you do it
yeah,
right.
yeah. So no, I mean that's a great question. I agree with everything you're saying. I think with the parity of sport and competition, parity of uniform and varsity logos, incredible in the league.
Yep, definitely. Big Ten basketball. Let's get
Big
into
Ten
it.
basketball hoops. Well, first off, just because I brought them up earlier, Northwestern on a tough streak, lost last night to Iowa off a game winner. Iowa wins on the it used to be MediaCom Court. I don't know what they
No,
call
it
it
still is.
now, but they won.
It
Oh, it
still
is
is.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. But they won at Carver off a game winner. Very similar play to what Jordan Bohanna did in 2019, I believe, or it could have been 2021. Either way, I mean, Jordan Bohanna was there for like years. So,
Yeah, it was 21, I think.
okay.
I
Deja
think.
vu, like almost same play. But beforehand, Northwestern was playing Butler Bulldogs, and down in Arizona for Arizona tip off where Butler actually won it all. They look really good. My pick for winning the Big East hoops, but that's not what we're talking about here. I want to talk about that very end where they get the shot off. They don't call the foul the way they probably should have called it. And I just think that's like 3 games in a row now where it's tough to see a Northwestern team that will be good throughout the year,
Mm-hmm.
just like taking losses and stacking losses. So that's all I want to say there. What other teams right now are you excited about men's hoops wise?
Man, it's tough. This conference seems really wide open, and
Yeah,
I've been seeing it disparagingly when outside fans are talking about the Big Ten and Big Ten hoops this year, and that the Big Ten regular season winner is going to be like 12-8. It's like, but we've seen out of conference play these teams hang. Even like a Michigan State team that I don't think is going to be world beaters. by any means play really well down in Maui. They were the one Big Ten rep in that tournament.
Uh-huh.
There's currently 4 teams in the top 25 out of the Big Ten. I would not be shocked if Michigan sneaks in this week now, given they
Is
knocked off an
Oregon in that
undefeated.
list?
They are. They're number 12. So
I
right
was
now
gonna
this
say.
week we got Purdue sitting at number 8. Wisconsin at number 11. They took their first loss last night to Michigan. I watched a lot of that game. Michigan looks really good. First-year head coach Dusty May brought a lot of the guys with him from FAU that were on that Final Four team actually just a couple years ago. So a lot of deep tournament experience. They're 7-1 now, and knocked off an undefeated Wisconsin team that looks really good. Wisconsin at Purdue at 8, Wisconsin at 11, Oregon's at 12, and then Illinois at 19 back in the rankings this week. Knocked off Arkansas on Thanksgiving Day. Actually, that was the Turkey Day Classic down in Kansas City. I was watching that game with my family a little bit. And we were talking to be like, man, that'd be a fun, we just do Thanksgiving, the 4 of us now, and my sister and I are older, so we're kind of a little non-traditional with it. It'd be like, it'd be fun like next year if Iowa goes to a tournament like that down in Kansas City, just screw the turkey. Let's go down, watch some hoops on Thanksgiving Thursday. Yeah. But that was an Arkansas team, Calipari's first year there. They were in the top 25. Illinois handled them pretty well, 10-point win, I think. So long-winded way to answer your question. You said, who do you like? I really don't know. I think this conference is wide open. It's too early to tell. There's going to be no team, I think, that's ever really knocking on the door of a number 1 ranking or anything like that, or even get a number 1 seed. But I would not be shocked if like all of the 4 seeds are Big Ten teams or something like that. Like that's where I think this conference really sits this year, and I think it'll really make for some entertaining hoops come conference play when that really ramps up. We get a couple teasers here, but first of the year, really get into it.
No, totally. A couple teasers. I mean, as we're filming right now, a lot of teams still haven't even played their first conference game.
Yeah, Oregon plays tonight.
They do play. They play USC. I think in an hour, 9:30 their time. Is it late? That's the thing, people. We keep forgetting. This would have been a Pac-12 after dark game. Rebrand it. Put the tape over it. It's Big Ten ball,
dude. I don't know when Iowa first makes a West Coast trip, man. But like, if that game starts at 9:30 our time, dude, on like a Friday night, could you imagine?
So overnight, dude,
that Friday night football game versus USC. If they didn't lose, even with Iowa's loss, that was like the most fun game, dude. These Friday night games are awesome. And come hoop season, you're just sitting having a couple bevs, trying to stay warm, battling these brutal Midwest winters.
They did just tip off.
Man. They did. Okay. I see that.
Yep. Tomorrow actually, I think is a more exciting game is the number 8 Purdue playing Penn State. They're both 7-1 on the season so far.
Yeah.
And Penn State basketball, like, sneaky good sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean,
really turned the corner last few years.
Yeah. So I think that will be a fun game to watch too. I mean, Purdue's been housing every team they've played so far this season. When you watch them, I know a lot of kids at Purdue are loving the fact that they're playing again in Mackey Arena. Mm-hmm. So good for them. But this weekend, there's a few more games too, especially Saturday. There's 5 games where teams are playing each other. So, I mean, not talking about really betting here, but talking more so about just watching games. I mean, if you want to find a way to parlay these games into Ducks win or Penn State win, you might find some crazy numbers there. But I think there's going to be some really fun games to watch. Saturday specifically, Wisconsin-Marquette. That's going to be the game I say tune into if you're watching a hoops game. That's 12:30 on Fox. Mm-hmm. Marquette's number 5. Marquette probably is the I don't want to say homer pick. Butler's a homer pick, but I mean, like, they're really good right now, and they're the best team, especially after watching kind of UConn's wheels fall off. They're a good Big East team. So watching Wisconsin play them, it's going to be great. Going to be a good litmus test for what, like you said, what Big Ten looks like now and what they look like later in the season, and how we can kind of match ourselves versus the country's skill level.
Absolutely. Yeah, a couple really good matchups Saturday. Iowa plays Michigan. Iowa has one loss, but I don't know how to feel with this team, and I'm not going to talk about our homer team that much longer. Oregon plays UCLA on Sunday, kind of early evening game. That'll be a fun one. Oregon's top 25 right now. UCLA fell out, but right on the cusp there, kind of. And then next week we get kind of back into some of this out of conference play. Iowa plays Iowa State for the Cyhawk game
Yep.
next Thursday. Iowa State,
Yep.
top 10 team, just knocked off Marquette tonight, actually. Kind of a bummer that they're getting a lot of the attention in state right now. Iowa's kind of used to that spotlight,
Yeah.
being the historically better of the two programs, but things always flip around. Those Badgers take on Butler next weekend. So maybe next week we'll focus a little more on that game. Next Saturday
I was
in
gonna say
the Indy Classic.
next week there are some really exciting games.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Tennessee
and
takes down Illinois, a couple orange teams, Big Ten SEC.
Ohio State's playing Auburn, and Auburn's number 2 as of right now. I mean, like they're nasty.
Yep.
So, it's gonna be good stuff. Hoops is here. Everyone's gotten their feet under them. You've figured out who your 5 or 6 go-to guys are now, and you're figuring out who the bench is. You're figuring out what this team's going to look like against other teams in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
Tune in Saturday, man. Tune in Saturday.
All right. One last mail-in question and then wrap up.
Yeah. Last mail-in, we had and we'll continue to take mail whenever, and I know we have questions that kind of leak in here and there, but I believe the question that came through our Instagram was the best medieval battle of all time.
Yeah.
Did I get that correctly? And not I don't know if that includes sieges or conquests on nations or anything like that. But I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Rutgers question. They are the Scarlet Knights. I did not read it as a Rutgers question. I read this as what is your favorite medieval battle? The viewers want to know. To me, dude, it's got to be the Battle of Grunwald. July 15th of 1410, man. The Polish-Lithuanian Teutonic War was really raging on for years at this point. Really crazy. King Władysław Jagiello of Poland, his nickname was Jogalia, kind of sick. Who
gave him that? Do you think he gave himself that nickname?
No, his followers definitely did. His brothers, in battle.
Okay.
Him and Ulrich von Juningen really squared off in this battle. It was near modern day Grunwald, in fact, making sense. It's the Battle of Grunwald. Decisive victory for the Polish-Lithuanian alliance in this one. They did capture many of the Teutonic Order that were attacking, and they lost 203 of their brothers in this battle, with strength of 27,000 men. So ratio is a little bit off. This is medieval, so KDs were a lot different. It was more of like a MAME-D, maims to death ratio.
Sure. Yeah. You might be hurt today, gone next week type deal.
Yeah. Infection, plague, that sort of thing. So, that one was pretty hardcore, man. I gotta say, Battle of Grunwald is the one for me. How about you?
So I'm gonna be honest. I didn't have an answer. I didn't look one up. Medieval times has never really been something I really sunk my teeth into from like a history standpoint.
Yeah.
Granted, I do want to like take a shot at it. I think just anything Crusades related over the time, kind of crazy.
Yeah, Crusades go hard for sure.
And I have a book about the rise of some nations and some things and how the Crusades happened over time. I got like the first 20 pages into it, and then I found a book about the Wild West that I got into. So I gotta get back to it.
Yeah.
So if I would have done my homework, I would have had a better answer. I don't have one. I will say I do want to go to a Renaissance fair or like a medieval thing.
Go to Medieval Times, dude. Isn't that like that restaurant?
Dude, I'm not gonna. There's places in Wisconsin that are like legit Renaissance fairs. They're like an hour and a half away. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So I don't have an answer for this. I'm glad you do. I wasn't gonna make something up. Like I will be honest. I did have like a list, or like the Wikipedia list, but I'm not gonna say something, and for real medieval fans, I don't want to be like a faker. So I respect the game.
I don't, because I just looked up best medieval battles, and full disclosure, bro. I read through the list. I was like, Grunwald sounds kind of hard. This one's cool. Like, I like the guy's name. Joe Gallia is just a sick name. So that's where I was at with that one.
Okay, well then, can I tell you the one that I like?
Yeah, what caught your eye? I mean,
Okay, okay. So like, legitimately on my list was the Battle of Largs,
okay.
it was a between kingdoms in Norway and kingdoms in Scotland.
Oh,
So
see,
yeah,
that's crazy. See, that's what's crazy about, not to cut you off, medieval times. Like, no way were countries like that beefing with each other, because they're so boring now. They're like great places to live, good health care, you know, very green,
well,
kind of on the forefront of a lot of things these days. Back then, it's like, fuck you. Like, we're going after you, man. Like,
going after you, and also think about those are pretty cold places. In
yeah,
1263 is when they said this happened. So the 1300s when this happened, it's
1263
freezing.
is not in the 1300s, dude.
Or mid 13th century. I meant.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry, 13th century. Man, we've been talking football. We've been talking basketball. Now we're talking Norway. Like, we're all over the place.
yeah.
Apologies if I'm a little off on that one. But yeah, we'll add the Wikipedia links to both these fights into the YouTube. How about that?
Yeah. Read up a little bit. They're cool.
Okay.
Last thing on medieval for me, uh, Dragon Age Veilguard's been hot in the streets in the gaming world recently. That's kind of a medieval game. Dragons and all that's medieval. You said you never really got into medieval stuff. Neither did I. I just like playing Skyrim. I mean, that's basically medieval in my head.
Is Shrek medieval?
100%.
Okay, then I'm into medieval.
Like it's medieval. Like it's medieval
Shrek
coded.
2?
You know what I mean? It's not
Medieval coded.
like Duloc is medieval coded. You can't disagree.
No, you're on to
Yeah,
something.
they got
You're
the
on to
horns
something.
and the banners and all this.
Stupid.
Yeah, it's time to wrap it up. We'll have less medieval talk and more sports talk come next week.
Hey, or we'll give the people what they want for
Yeah,
sure.
mail in a question. You want to talk about space? I don't know much about that, so we could just conjecture wildly and see where that goes.
Yeah.
What other topics? Lizards are kind of cool. We can talk about them.
I'm into lizards, geckos.
Geckos. Yeah, whatever it is, we'll chat. So, anything parting thoughts from you, Coach Cole?
Parting thoughts. Here's the deal. It's getting colder out. This is a serious thing. Look through your closet. Donating clothes this time of year, you can honestly change people's lives. You probably have something you don't wear. I know I need to go through my closet, find stuff that I'm not wearing, or if it's coats and stuff. You know, it's not warm out anymore. So anything you can do, just for like your local community and stuff, I think that stuff goes a long way. So that's a more serious note. Totally handle that stuff. But otherwise, it's time to start getting hoops up, and time to start finding a better couch for you to sit on to watch some of these games at night.
Yeah, cozy up by the fire. And the sweet sounds of sneakers on the gym floor.
Yes. Hey, that popular shoes right now, AE1s, Anthony Edwards. See
Really?
those all over the place.
Where are the
Lots of colorways.
CC ones, man? They said Kitten Clark got a
They're
shoe
on the
deal.
way.
I
They're
know.
on the way.
I want CC ones, man.
Paige Beckers just had her shoe drop or whatever with like the bucket logo. Interesting. Have you seen those?
I have not.
Well,
I don't have shoe game. I
I'll
do
tell you
not
what.
have shoe game. I wear New
We'll
Balances,
start next week.
bro. Like,
all right, Kawhi.
is he endorsed through New Balance? Is he really?
Well, at least last time I checked.
Dude, I did not know. I did not know they made basketball shoes. Let's be real.
They make nice basketball shoes.
Hey, Clayton Kershaw, not basketball. Clayton Kershaw got a Skechers deal. They make his cleats, which it's a rough look.
Well, did you see Big Justice hit a home run with Bryce Harper?
I did not.
Okay, so there's your homework. All right,
Okay.
we'll talk about that next week.
All right. We'll see you next week.
There you go.
Stay warm out there. Have a good weekend, and we'll catch you then. Peace.
Peace out.